The crystal chamber floated in the darkness of space, its walls shimmering with light from the dying neutron star below. Inside, representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated seats, waiting. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called, and everyone knew why. Admiral Jinho Park stood at the center of the chamber floor. His dark blue uniform, pristine and simple compared to the elaborate robes and armor worn by the alien delegates around him. He was a tall man with graying hair at his temples, and his face showed no emotion as he waited for the council to speak. Behind him, Ambassador Yuna Kim sat quietly in the human observer section. Her hands folded in her lap, Counselor Vextar rose from his seat. He was a large reptilian creature with green scales and yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the chamber's light. As the head of the Galactic Military Assessment Division, his word carried weight. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber. The Kaldrith Empire has issued their final ultimatum to the human species, Vextar said, his tongue flicking between sharp teeth. They demand that Earth surrender all outer colonies within 48 hours. If humanity refuses, the Kaldrith will launch a full military assault. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some delegates shifted in their seats. Others whispered to their aides. The Kaldrith were known throughout the galaxy as ruthless conquerors. They had never lost a war in 400 years. Vextar continued, pulling up holographic displays that filled the air above the chamber floor. We have analyzed both military forces. The Kaldrith fleet consists of 3,000 warships, each equipped with advanced plasma cannons and energy shields. Their technology is among the most sophisticated in the galaxy. The hologram shifted to show human ships. They looked smaller, simpler. The designs were blocky and utilitarian compared to the sleek Kaldrith vessels. The human fleet, Vextar said, and there was something like pity in his voice, consists of 847 ships. Their technology is approximately 200 years behind Kaldrith standards. Their weapons are primarily kinetic-based, primitive railguns and missile systems. Their shields are adequate but not exceptional. More murmurs. Admiral Park remained still, his expression unreadable. Based on our tactical models, Vextar said, we predict that humanity will be able to resist the Kaldrith assault for approximately 6 to 8 hours before their fleet is destroyed. The Council must decide whether to intervene or whether to prepare refugee facilities for the surviving human population. A delegate from the Aquarian Collective, a species of blue-skinned water dwellers, raised a tentacle. Have the humans requested military aid? Vextar looked at Ambassador Yuna Kim. She rose gracefully. Her black hair pulled back in a simple style. She was younger than many had expected for such an important position, but she spoke with calm confidence. The human government thanks the Council for its concern, Yuna said, her voice clear in the vast chamber. However, we respectfully decline any military intervention. We will handle this matter ourselves. Shock rippled through the chamber. Several delegates began speaking at once. The Aquarian delegate waved its tentacles in confusion. A crystalline being from the Luminar species chimed like breaking glass, their version of laughter. Ambassador Kim, Vextar said slowly, surely you understand the situation. The Kaldrith will not show mercy. Your fleet is outnumbered more than 3 to 1. Your technology is inferior. This is not a matter of pride. This is about the survival of your species. Yuna Kim smiled slightly. We understand the assessment, Counselor. We still decline intervention. We ask only that the Council respect our decision and allow us to defend our territory as we see fit. Admiral Park finally spoke, his voice rough but steady. The Kaldrith chose to threaten us. We will respond appropriately. That is all we have to say on the matter. The Council debated for another hour, but the humans would not change their position. Finally, Vextar called for a vote. The Council agreed to allow humanity to fight their own battle. Though many delegates looked somber, several species began making arrangements to accept human refugees after the inevitable defeat. As the session ended, Vextar approached Admiral Park and Ambassador Kim privately. I have fought in many wars, the old reptilian said quietly. I have seen species destroyed because of pride. Please, reconsider. There is no shame in accepting help when facing impossible odds. Park met his eyes. We appreciate your concern, Counselor, but we know what we're doing. Do you truly believe you can win? Vextar asked. Yuna Kim answered. Counselor, the Kaldrith made a mistake when they threatened us. They should have studied humanity more carefully. We have studied you, Vextar said. For 50 years we have observed Earth. We know your capabilities. Park smiled for the first time, and there was something cold in that smile. You know what we've let you see. The Admiral and Ambassador left the chamber, leaving Vextar standing alone, uncertain. 3 hours later, Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Fleet Command Station. Around him, officers worked at their stations, monitoring the fleet's positions. General Taeyang Choi stood beside him, reviewing tactical displays. All ships are in position, Taeyang reported. He was a stocky man with sharp eyes and quick hands. The Kaldrith fleet will reach the Proxima defense line in 6 hours. And our people? Park asked. Ready, sir. Every ship, every crew. They know what's at stake. Park nodded slowly. He looked at the display showing their 800 ships positioned in what appeared to be a scattered, disorganized formation. To outside observers, it would look like chaos. The Galactic Council's monitors were already recording, preparing to document humanity's last stand. The Council thinks we're going to lose, Taeyang said quietly. Good, Park replied. Let them think that. Let the Kaldrith think it too. Sir, the crews are asking, what should I tell them? Park turned from the display to face his general. Tell them the truth. Tell them that Earth is counting on them. Tell them that we've prepared for this moment for 75 years. Tell them that when this battle is over, the galaxy will never underestimate humanity again. Taeyang smiled and saluted. Yes, sir. As the general walked away to relay the message, Park looked back at the display. Somewhere out there, 3,000 Kaldrith warships were coming, confident in their superiority. Their commanders probably thought this would be easy. Another primitive species crushed under their might. Park thought about all the years of preparation, all the secrets kept, all the technology developed in hidden facilities far from prying eyes, all the intelligence gathered from every species that had ever traded with Earth. The Kaldrith were about to learn a very painful lesson. He touched a comm button. All ships, this is Admiral Park. Stand ready. Execute protocol. Midnight on my command. Across the fleet, 800 ships acknowledged. Their crews sat at their stations, fingers on triggers, waiting. The countdown had begun. The Kaldrith dreadnought, Eternal Dominion, was a monster of a ship. 5 kilometers long, bristling with weapons, armored with shields that could withstand star-level temperatures. It had led the Kaldrith Empire to victory in 100 wars. Fleet Commander Rathgor stood on its bridge, his forearms crossed over his armored chest, watching the display screens with satisfaction. His species was large and powerful, with thick gray skin like stone and eyes that burned red. Rathgor had commanded fleets for 60 years and had never tasted defeat. He did not expect today to be any different. Status of the human fleet, he growled. His tactical officer, a younger Kaldrith named Vorn, checked his instruments. Long-range sensors detect 847 human vessels. They appear to be positioned in a defensive formation around the Proxima colony cluster. Appear to be, Rathgor said. Their formation is unusual, Commander, scattered, almost random in placement. It does not match any known tactical doctrine. Rathgor laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. Because they have no doctrine. They are primitives playing at war. How long until we reach weapons range? 1 hour, 17 minutes at current speed. Open a channel. Let me speak to these humans. The communications officer worked quickly, and soon Rathgor's image was being broadcast to every human ship in the system. He made sure to look as intimidating as possible. Humans, he said, his voice deep and threatening. I am Fleet Commander Rathgor, of the Kaldrith Empire. You have been given the honor of hearing my voice before your destruction. Surrender your colonies now, and we will allow your species to survive as servants of the Empire. Refuse, and we will turn your ships into debris, and your worlds into ash. You have 1 hour to comply. He cut the transmission and waited. Usually, primitive species sent back desperate pleas for mercy at this point. Some begged. Some cried. Some made foolish threats they could not back up. The humans sent nothing. Complete radio silence. No response, Commander. The communications officer reported. Rathgor frowned. Perhaps they are too frightened to speak. or too stupid to operate their equipment properly. No matter. Continue the advance. Aboard the human destroyer, Indomitable. Captain Min Ji-han watched Rathgore's broadcast with cold eyes. She was a compact woman, with short black hair and hands that never seemed to stop moving. Around her bridge, her crew waited for her response. "Captain?" her first officer asked. "Should we reply?" "No," Minji said simply. "Let him wonder. How's our status?" "All systems green. Railguns charged. Missiles loaded. Crew at battle stations. Engineering reports the new reactor is running at 100%. And our special package?" The first officer grinned. "Ready to deliver, Captain." Minji allowed herself a small smile. The Caldrith had no idea what was coming. None of them did. At Earth Defense Command, deep in a bunker on Mars, Tactical Officer Daewon Song studied the Caldrith fleet formation on a massive holographic display. He was surrounded by dozens of analysts, all feeding him information. Daewon had been studying Caldrith tactics for 10 years, ever since humanity first learned they might pose a threat. "There," he said, pointing at a section of the enemy formation. "Look at their rear guard. Only 40 ships. And they're positioned too far back to provide mutual support to the main fleet." His supervisor, a older woman named Colonel Park, leaned in to look. "You're sure?" "Positive. The Caldrith have won so many battles by overwhelming forward assault that they've gotten lazy. They never expect anyone to survive their first wave, so they don't protect their flanks or rear properly. Can we exploit it?" Daewon pulled up tactical simulations he'd been running for months. "If we can get past their initial assault, yes. Their bigger ships have massive firepower facing forward, but minimal defensive weapons on their sides and rear. They rely on their shields, but shields are only as strong as the power feeding them. And if we cut that power, then they're just big targets." Daewon sent his analysis to Admiral Park's flagship. "I'm transmitting the weak points now." High above Mars, in her fighter bay aboard the carrier Defiant Storm, Squadron Leader So-Young Lee checked her flight suit seals one more time. Around her, 200 other fighter pilots were doing the same. The bay was crowded with small, nimble fighters, each one equipped with weapons the Caldrith had never seen before. So-Young had been flying combat simulations since she was 16. She was now 28 and had logged more flight hours than pilots twice her age. She was calm, focused, ready. "Hey, So-Young," one of her pilots called out. His name was Jin Woo, young and eager. "You think this is really going to work?" "Which part?" she asked, adjusting her helmet. "All of it, the plan. Taking on 3,000 ships with what we've got." So-Young looked at him and smiled. "Jin Woo, the Caldrith think we're primitives. They think our fighters are slow, and our weapons are weak. They're about to learn that humans are very good at two things: adapting and surprising." "And the third thing?" another pilot asked. "Winning," So-Young said. She climbed into her fighter's cockpit. "Now everyone get ready. When the Admiral gives the word, we're going to move faster than anything the Caldrith have ever seen." Back on the Eternal Dominion, Rathgore checked the countdown timer. 43 minutes until weapons range. The human ships still hadn't moved. They just sat there in their chaotic formation, waiting. "They're not even trying to maneuver," Vorn observed. "Perhaps they truly are paralyzed with fear. Or incompetence," Rathgore said. "Either way, they die the same. Prepare all forward batteries. I want the first volley to destroy at least 200 of their ships. Show them the power of the Caldrith Empire." "Yes, Commander." Watching from their observation post, the Galactic Council monitors recorded everything. Counselor Vextar stood with several other observers, watching the Caldrith fleet approach the human positions. "The humans are not maneuvering," one observer noted. "They are simply waiting. Perhaps they have accepted their fate," another suggested. Vextar said nothing. But he felt uneasy. Something about this didn't feel right. Admiral Park had been too confident. Ambassador Kim too calm. Humans were known for being emotional, passionate creatures. Why were they so composed when facing certain death? He pulled up the data on human ship capabilities again. The specifications had been gathered over decades of observation and trade. Everything indicated that human technology was indeed inferior to Caldrith's standards. So why did he feel like he was missing something? 30 minutes until weapons range. On his flagship, Admiral Park sat in his command chair, watching the Caldrith fleet grow closer on his displays. General Taeyang stood beside him, also watching. Neither man spoke. There was nothing left to say. Everything was in place. "Admiral," the communications officer said, "the Caldrith commander is hailing us again." "Ignore it," Park said. 20 minutes until weapons range. Rathgor was getting annoyed. "They still refuse to respond?" "Complete silence, Commander. Arrogant primitives. They will learn respect soon enough. All ships, prepare for combat. Charge all weapons. Route maximum power to forward shields. When we reach range, I want a simultaneous volley from the entire fleet. We will crush them in one overwhelming strike." 10 minutes. Across the human fleet, crews made final preparations. Weapons were charged to maximum. Shield generators hummed with power far greater than their specifications suggested. Reactor cores that had been running at half capacity suddenly surged to full power, outputting energy levels that would have shocked any Galactic Council observer. 5 minutes. So Young Lee and her fellow pilots sat in their cockpits, hands on controls, eyes on their displays. They were ready. 1 minute. Admiral Park leaned forward in his chair. "All ships," he said quietly into his comm. "Stand by for Protocol Midnight. 0. The Caldrith fleet entered maximum weapons range and opened fire. 3,000 Caldrith warships fired as one. The void of space lit up with plasma bolts, energy beams, and explosive missiles. It was a wave of destruction that should have vaporized anything in its path. The Caldrith had used this tactic to destroy countless enemies. One overwhelming first strike that broke the enemy's will to fight. The wall of fire crossed the distance to the human fleet in seconds. Rathgor watched his displays with satisfaction, already imagining the debris that would be left behind. Then the first plasma bolts hit human shields, and his satisfaction turned to confusion. The human ships absorbed the impact. Their shields flared bright blue and white, rippling with energy, but they held, more than held. They seemed to barely strain under the assault. "What?" Rathgor leaned forward. "How are their shields that strong?" Our intelligence said, "Commander, the human shields are operating at power levels far beyond their reported specifications," Vorn shouted over the noise of continuing weapons fire. "They should have collapsed by now." On the observation deck, Counselor Vextar's eyes widened. "That's impossible. Human shield technology is rated for 1/3 of that energy absorption. How are they?" Admiral Park allowed himself a slight smile as the Caldrith barrage continued to hammer uselessly against his fleet's shields. Around him, his bridge crew worked calmly, monitoring systems and awaiting orders. "Damage report," he said. "Minimal, sir. Shields at 87% across the fleet. No hull damage, no casualties." "Good." Park pressed a button on his chair. His voice carried to every human ship in the system. "All vessels. This is Admiral Park. Protocol Midnight. Execute now." What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. The human fleet, which had appeared scattered and disorganized, suddenly moved. Not slowly, as their specifications suggested they should move. They moved fast. Impossibly fast. Their engines flared with power that shouldn't have been possible. And 800 ships shifted into perfect attack formations in less than 10 seconds. "They're moving," Vorn screamed. "Commander, their acceleration rates are 3 times what our data indicated." Rathgor gripped his command console. "All ships, adjust targeting, compensate for their speed." But the human ships were already too close. Already inside the Caldrith formation's optimal firing range. And then, they launched their fighters. Squadron leader So Young Lee felt the familiar rush as her fighter catapulted from the carrier bay into open space. Around her, 2,000 other human fighters launched simultaneously from their carriers, creating a swarm of small, fast-moving targets. "All wings, this is Lee," she said into her comm. "Execute pattern Delta 7. Stay random, stay fast, and remember your training. Let's show them what Earth's best can do." The fighters scattered, each one moving in seemingly erratic patterns. The Caldrith targeting computers, designed to track large ships moving in predictable patterns, couldn't lock onto the darting, weaving fighters. Point defense systems fired wildly, hitting nothing. So Young grinned behind her helmet. All right, people. Hit their sensor arrays first. Blind them. Her fighter dove toward a Caldrith cruiser, her hands dancing across controls. The fighter's weapons were small compared to ship-mounted guns, but they were precise. She targeted the cruiser's external sensor cluster and fired a burst from her railgun. The Caldrith had never seen railguns quite like these. They fired tungsten rounds at relativistic speeds, accelerated by magnetic fields far more powerful than anything the Galactic Council knew humans possessed. The rounds hit the cruiser's sensors at a significant fraction of light speed. The sensor cluster exploded into fragments. The cruiser was suddenly blind, unable to track targets or coordinate with its fellow ships. Across the battlefield, 2,000 other fighters did the same thing. In less than a minute, hundreds of Caldrith ships lost their ability to see clearly. Commander Hyun-Woo Baek watched from his carrier as his fighters swarmed the enemy. He was a broad-shouldered man with gray hair and a calm demeanor that never broke, even in combat. Status of the fighter wings? He asked. All wings engaged, sir. 94% effectiveness rate. Enemy point defense is completely overwhelmed. Good. Launch second wave. Target their engines this time. Another 1,000 fighters launched, fresh and ready. The Caldrith fleet, designed to fight other large ships in organized formations, had no answer for this swarm of small, fast, unpredictable targets. On the Eternal Dominion, chaos was erupting on the bridge. We've lost sensors on 47 ships, Vorn reported. Their fighters are too small and too fast. Our targeting systems can't track them. Then fire manually, Rathgor roared. Saturate the area with fire. They can't dodge everything. But that wasn't the worst of it. The main human fleet was opening fire now, and their weapons were nothing like what Caldrith intelligence had reported. Captain Minji Han's destroyer, the Indomitable, raced toward a Caldrith battleship. The enemy ship was 10 times her size, bristling with weapons. It should have been able to destroy her destroyer easily. Forward railguns, fire. Minji said calmly. The Indomitable's main guns fired. They were railguns, yes, kinetic weapons, primitive by Galactic Council standards. Except these railguns used magnetic acceleration technology that the Council didn't know existed. They fired tungsten rounds weighing several tons each, at velocities approaching 10% of light speed. The rounds hit the Caldrith battleship's shields. The shields, designed to dissipate energy weapons, had no idea how to handle solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The physics were different. The shields flickered, strained, and failed. The tungsten rounds punched through the battleship's armor like it was paper. Atmosphere vented into space. Internal systems exploded. The battleship broke in half. Minji watched it die with no emotion. Next target, keep firing. Across the fleet, other human ships were doing the same. The Caldrith shields, so effective against plasma and energy weapons, were useless against matter moving at such incredible speeds. Human railguns tore through ship after ship. On the observation deck, the Galactic Council monitors stood in shocked silence. This is impossible, one of them whispered. Human technology can't do this. Our data said. Our data was wrong. Vextar said quietly. His mind was racing, trying to understand. They lied to us. For how long? How long have they been hiding their true capabilities? Ambassador Yuna Kim stood in the observation area, watching the battle with calm eyes. She had known this moment would come. She had helped plan for it. A council aide approached her, his voice shaking. Ambassador, your fleet, how are they doing this? Yuna looked at him. Humanity has been preparing for contact with hostile forces for 75 years. Ever since we first detected the Galactic Council's existence, we learned everything we could about every species. We traded with you, visited your worlds, studied your technology, and then we went home and made it better. But the ships we've seen, the specifications you shared, were false, Yuna said simply. Not entirely false, but incomplete. We showed you what we wanted you to see. Old technology, limited capabilities. We kept our real advancements hidden. Back in the battle, Rathgor was beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. Casualties? He demanded. 234 ships destroyed, Commander. Another 91 heavily damaged. And the humans have barely taken any losses. How many of their ships have we destroyed? Vorn checked his display, his hands shaking. 7, Commander. We've destroyed 7 human ships. Rathgor felt something he hadn't felt in 60 years of warfare. Fear. Admiral Park stood on his bridge, watching the Caldrith fleet begin to break apart. Their perfect formation was dissolving into chaos as ships tried to avoid human fighters, dodge railgun fire, and re-establish their sensor networks all at once. General Taeyang reported, "Sir, the enemy is starting to falter. Their formation is collapsing." "How long has it been?" Park asked. 4 minutes and 37 seconds since first contact, sir." Park nodded. "Launch the torpedoes." From hidden bays across the human fleet, new weapons emerged. Sleek missiles that immediately accelerated to incredible speeds. But these weren't conventional missiles. Each one had a warhead that contained a tiny amount of antimatter, magnetically contained until impact. The Caldrith had never seen weapons like this. The torpedoes were too fast to intercept, too small to target easily, and when they hit, the first torpedo struck a Caldrith cruiser amidships. The antimatter met normal matter and annihilated completely, releasing energy equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. The cruiser simply ceased to exist. Replaced by an expanding ball of plasma, 40 more torpedoes found their targets. 40 more Caldrith ships vanished in bursts of light. On the Eternal Dominion, Rathgor watched his fleet die and knew he had lost. The humans had destroyed his forces in minutes. Minutes. This was supposed to have been easy, a quick conquest of a primitive species. Instead, it was a slaughter, and the Caldrith were the ones being slaughtered. "All ships," he said, his voice hollow. "Retreat. Retreat now." But it was already too late. The human ships were everywhere, cutting off escape routes, destroying any ship that tried to run. The hunters had become the hunted. Admiral Park checked his timer. 8 minutes since the battle began. "Send a message to the Caldrith fleet, Commander," he said. "Open channel." When Rathgor's image appeared on the screen, Park looked at him without mercy. "Commander," Park said, "you gave us 1 hour to surrender. We needed 8 minutes to destroy your fleet. Stand down now, or we'll finish what we started." Rathgor stared at Admiral Park's image on his screen, his mind still trying to process what had happened. His fleet was dying. In 8 minutes, the humans had destroyed over 200 of his ships and damaged hundreds more. His perfect invasion force was falling apart. "You." Rathgor's voice was rough, broken. "You deceived us. You deceived the entire council." Rathgor's voice. You deceived the entire council. We protected ourselves," Park replied, his voice cold. "You threatened our people. Now you pay the price. Surrender your fleet, or we continue." Before Rathgor could respond, his tactical officer shouted in panic. "Commander! Something's happening to our systems. Multiple ships reporting computer malfunctions." Park's image smiled slightly. "I should mention, we're not done yet." Deep in a secured facility on Earth's moon, Hana Yoon sat at a terminal, surrounded by dozens of screens, each showing different Caldrith ship systems. She was a thin woman with sharp features and eyes that never seemed to blink. Her fingers flew across holographic keyboards at incredible speed. Hana was Earth's top cyber warfare specialist, and for the past 5 years, she had been preparing for this exact moment. "Activating infiltration protocols," she said into her comm. "Beginning system penetration. In 3, 2, 1. Execute." What the Caldrith didn't know was that every trade mission, every diplomatic exchange, every single interaction with human merchants over the past 30 years had been an intelligence operation. Human traders had sold them goods, yes, but those goods had contained hidden transmitters, small devices that connected to Caldrith computer networks and sent data back to Earth. Humans had mapped every detail of Caldrith computer systems, studied their programming languages, found their vulnerabilities, and now, using communications protocols the Caldrith themselves had shared during trade negotiations, Hana and her team were exploiting those vulnerabilities. On the Eternal Dominion, warning lights began flashing across every console. "Shield generators offline," Vorn screamed. We're trying to restart them, but the system won't respond. Weapons targeting is failing. Another officer reported. Fire control is locked out. How is this possible? Rathgor demanded. Our systems are encrypted. Protected. But they weren't protected against an enemy who had spent decades learning every detail of those systems. Hana's virus spread through the Caldrith fleet like wildfire, jumping from ship to ship through their communication networks. Shield generators shut down. Weapons systems locked up. Engine controls became erratic. All ships report system failures. Vorn's voice was pure panic now. Commander, we're defenseless. Rathgor looked at his screens and saw his mighty fleet, reduced to helpless metal boxes floating in space. And the human ships were still coming. Captain Minji Han watched her tactical display as Caldrith shields flickered and died across dozens of enemy ships. She had been waiting for this moment. Target the battleships first, she ordered. Disable their engines. I want prisoners, not corpses. Fire. The Indomitable's railguns fired again, but this time with precision shots aimed at engine blocks instead of kill shots. Without shields, the Caldrith ships were vulnerable. Human gunners, trained to incredible accuracy, methodically crippled ship after ship, but not all humans were being so merciful. Admiral Park had authorized full combat operations, and some captains took that authorization seriously. Antimatter torpedoes continued to launch, and more Caldrith ships exploded into clouds of debris. General Taeyong watched the battle unfold from the command center. Admiral, the Caldrith are trying to scatter. Should we let some escape? See? No, Park said firmly. If we let them escape, they'll regroup and attack again. Or they'll tell the rest of the Caldrith Empire that humans are weak because we showed mercy. We end this here, completely. Understood, sir. Squadron leader So-Young Lee and her fighter wings had shifted tactics. With many Caldrith ships now dead in space, their point defense offline, the fighters moved in close for surgical strikes. Blue Squadron, take out the engines on that cruiser, So-Young ordered. Red Squadron, I want those battleship turrets neutralized. Green Squadron, escort duty. Make sure no Caldrith ships break through our lines. Copy that, Led, her pilots responded. The fighters swarmed over the disabled Caldrith vessels like insects, methodically destroying weapons and propulsion systems. Any ship that tried to flee found human fighters blocking their path. Railguns ready. On the observation deck, the Galactic Council monitors watched in stunned silence. Ambassador Yuna Kim stood among them, her face neutral but her eyes sharp. Counselor Vextar approached her slowly, as if in a daze. How long? He asked quietly. How long have you been planning this? 75 years, Yuna replied. Since we first intercepted Galactic Council transmissions and realized we weren't alone in the universe. We knew that eventually, someone would see us as weak, as prey. So we prepared. You lied to us. All the technology you shared, the specifications of your ships, were accurate, Yuna interrupted. For our old ships, the ones we wanted you to see, we let you observe our older vessels, our training exercises with outdated equipment. We let you think you understood us, while you built weapons in secret, Vextar said. While we prepared to defend ourselves, Yuna corrected. Every species in the Council has military forces. Why should we be any different? We just chose not to advertise our full capabilities. Another Council observer, a floating jellyfish-like creature, drifted closer. But the cyber attack. How did you infiltrate their systems? Yuna allowed herself a small smile. For 30 years, human merchants have been trading with the Caldrith, selling them goods, buying their products, building relationships. Every cargo ship, every trade station, every communication device we sold them had hidden transmitters, small, undetectable. They mapped the Caldrith computer networks and sent that data back to Earth. That's espionage, the observer said. That's intelligence gathering, Yuna said. The Caldrith were planning to invade us. We knew it. So we prepared. If they had chosen peace, our preparations would have remained secret forever. They chose war. Back in the battle zone, Rathgor's situation was becoming desperate. His fleet was scattered, his ships disabled, and human forces were systematically destroying or capturing every vessel. "We have to surrender," Vorn said quietly. "Commander, we have no choice." Rathgor wanted to refuse. The Kaldrith Empire had never surrendered in 400 years. But he looked at his displays and saw the truth. His fleet was finished. If he continued fighting, every ship would be destroyed, and every crew member would die. "Open a channel to the human admiral," he said, his voice filled with defeat. Admiral Park's face appeared on screen again. "We surrender," Rathgor said. The words tasted like poison. The Kaldrith fleet surrenders. Please. No more killing." Park studied him for a long moment. "Order all your ships to power down their weapons and engines. Any ship that refuses will be destroyed. You have 5 minutes to comply." Yes. Yes, we will comply." Park cut the transmission and looked at General Taeyang. "Time elapsed? 11 minutes and 19 seconds since first contact, sir. Casualties on our side? 12 ships destroyed. 3,200 personnel lost. 48 ships damaged but repairable." Park closed his eyes briefly, thinking of the 3,000 people who had died today. Every loss hurt. But compared to what the Kaldrith would have done if they'd won, "And the Kaldrith?" he asked. Taeyang checked his displays. 2,847 ships destroyed. 153 ships disabled and surrendering. The rest are scattered and fleeing, but our fighters are pursuing. "Order the fighters to let them go," Park said. "Any ship running away is no longer a threat. Focus on securing the surrendered vessels and rescuing survivors from both sides." "Sir? We're not monsters, General. The battle is over. Now we save who we can." Commander Hyunwoo Baek received the order and began recalling his fighter wings. So-young Lee heard the recall and felt a mix of relief and exhaustion wash over her. "All wings, this is Lee. Cease fire and return to carriers. The battle is over. We won." Cheers erupted across the fighter comm channels, but So-young didn't join in. She just guided her fighter back toward her carrier. Thinking about the enemy pilots she'd killed today, they had been following orders, just like her. The only difference was their commander had made a fatal mistake. On Earth, in bunkers and command centers, cheers did erupt. Humanity had faced its first major interstellar war, and won decisively. The news spread across human colonies at light speed. Earth had stood against a galactic power and emerged victorious. Hana Yoon shut down her cyber warfare systems and leaned back in her chair, exhausted. Her part was done. The Kaldrith computer systems were completely compromised. Even if they tried to rebuild their fleet, humans would have backdoors into their networks forever. Admiral Park broadcast a message on all frequencies, including those monitored by the Galactic Council. "This is Admiral Jinho Park of the Earth Defense Fleet. The Kaldrith invasion has been repelled. Any Kaldrith vessels that surrender will be treated according to the laws of war. Any vessels that continue fighting will be destroyed. To the Galactic Council observers, humanity is ready to discuss our future relationship with the Council. But we will do so as equals, not as victims." In the observation deck, Counselor Vex's Tar listened to those words and understood. Everything had changed. Humanity was no longer a primitive species to be protected or pitied. They were a military power that had just demonstrated terrifying capability. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. 7 days after the battle, the Galactic Council chamber was filled again. But this time, the atmosphere was completely different. The delegates who had once looked at humanity with pity or dismissal now regarded the human representatives with respect, and in some cases, fear. Admiral Jinho Park stood at the center of the chamber floor once more. But now he wore the formal dress uniform of Earth Defense Forces, decorated with medals earned in the battle. Beside him stood Ambassador Yuna Kim, and behind them were General Taeyang Choi and a new face. Ji-won Choi, Earth's Chief of Naval Technology. Ji-won was an older man with white hair and gentle eyes that hid a brilliant mind. He had been the lead designer of humanity's secret weapons program for 40 years. Counselor Vex Tar called the session to order. His voice was careful, measured. "This emergency session has been convened to discuss the recent conflict between the Kaldrith Empire and humanity, and to address Earth's petition for a permanent seat on the Galactic Council. Murmurs ran through the chamber. A permanent seat meant full membership, equal standing with the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. First, Vextar continued, let us review the facts. 7 days ago, the Kaldrith Empire attacked human territory with a fleet of 3,000 warships. The battle lasted 13 minutes and 47 seconds. Kaldrith casualties included 2,847 ships destroyed and 153 ships captured. Human casualties were 12 ships destroyed and 3,200 personnel lost. The numbers hung in the air. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. One battle. Less than 15 minutes. An entire invasion fleet destroyed. The Kaldrith Empire has sued for peace, Vextar said. Their government has agreed to pay reparations and has withdrawn all territorial claims against human colonies. Their military command has been reorganized, and Fleet Commander Rathgor has been charged with war crimes for initiating an aggressive war. At the mention of his name, a holographic display showed Rathgor in a detention cell aboard a human prison ship. The mighty commander, who had conquered dozens of worlds, now sat alone, awaiting trial. The Council must now decide how to proceed with Earth, Vextar said. He turned to Admiral Park. Admiral, the Council has questions. Park nodded. We're prepared to answer. An delegate from the crystalline luminar species spoke, their voice like chiming bells. How long have you possessed this level of technology? The weapons we saw were far beyond what you shared with the Council. Ji-Wan Choi stepped forward. We began developing advanced military technology 75 years ago. When we first detected Council transmissions and realized we weren't alone, we studied every species we encountered. We learned from your strengths and your weaknesses. Then we innovated. You lied to us, another delegate said accusingly. We protected ourselves. Ambassador Yuna responded calmly. Earth shared technology that was accurate at the time we shared it. We never claimed to show you everything. Would any of you reveal all your military capabilities to potential rivals? Silence. Because, of course they wouldn't. Every species kept military secrets. Vextar spoke again. What are your current capabilities? The Council needs to understand what humanity now represents. Ji-Wan pulled up holographic displays. Our current fleet consists of 2,100 ships of various classes, all using the technology you witnessed. Our railgun technology can fire projectiles at up to 12% light speed. Our antimatter torpedo yield ranges from 5 to 50 megatons, depending on warhead size. Our cyber warfare division can infiltrate most known computer systems, including those of species who believe themselves secure. He paused, letting that sink in. Our shield technology is approximately 50 years ahead of the current galactic standard. Our reactor efficiency is 70% higher. Our fighter craft can achieve acceleration rates 3 times higher than comparable vessels from other species. 50 years ahead, a delegate whispered. How is that possible? Humanity has one advantage over most galactic species, Ji-Wan said. We are very good at taking ideas from others and improving them. We studied Council technology, learned the principles, and then pushed beyond what you thought possible. We didn't invent shields or reactors or computer systems. We just made them better, General Taeyong added. And we're not stopping. Our research continues. Every year, we advance further. By the time the rest of the galaxy catches up to where we are now, we'll be another decade ahead. The Aquarian delegate raised a tentacle. This sounds like a threat. It's a statement of fact, Admiral Park said. But let me be clear. Earth doesn't seek conquest. We don't want to dominate the galaxy. We want to be left alone to live our lives, but we will defend ourselves against any threat, and we will do so with overwhelming force. Vextar leaned forward. What are you asking from the Council? Ambassador Yuna stepped forward. Earth requests a permanent seat on the Galactic Council, with full voting rights and military authority. We will contribute to Council defense forces. We will share some of our non-military technology to benefit all species. We will trade fairly and honor diplomatic agreements. And in return? Vextar asked. In return, the Council recognizes Earth and all human colonies as sovereign territory that must not be threatened or invaded. Any species that attacks human interests will be considered an enemy of Earth, and we will respond accordingly. A small, furry delegate from the Felinar species spoke up nervously. What about species like mine? Small civilizations that can't defend themselves against larger powers. Would Earth help protect us? Yuna looked at Admiral Park, who nodded. Yes, Yuna said. Earth is prepared to offer defensive pacts to any species that requests our protection. We will not allow bullies to prey on the weak. This caused more murmuring. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting dramatically. For centuries, species like the Kaldrith had been able to conquer or threaten smaller civilizations without consequence. Now there was a new power that was offering to protect those civilizations. Vextar called for order. The Council will need to vote on Earth's petition. But first, I would like to make a personal statement. He stood, his large reptilian form imposing even among the diverse species present. 7 days ago, I stood in this chamber and told you that humanity would fall in 6 to 8 hours. I was wrong. Completely, utterly wrong. I underestimated Earth because I relied on incomplete data. But the fault was not with our intelligence gathering. The fault was with my own assumptions. He looked directly at Admiral Park. I assumed that a young species, barely 300 years into space exploration, could not possibly match civilizations that have been traveling the stars for thousands of years. I was arrogant, and that arrogance could have led to tragedy if the Kaldrith had been the ones preparing in secret instead of humanity. Vextar turned to address the full council. We have learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate a species based on their age or their technology at first contact. Humanity has shown us that innovation and determination can overcome centuries of traditional advancement. He paused, then continued. I propose that we grant Earth's petition immediately. They have earned their place among us, not through diplomacy or trade, but through demonstrated capability. They defeated the Kaldrith Empire in 13 minutes. 13 minutes. We must accept that humanity is now one of the most powerful military forces in known space. The vote was called. One by one, delegates cast their votes. Some voted yes immediately, eager to have Earth as an ally rather than a potential enemy. Others hesitated but ultimately voted yes, recognizing the reality of the situation. A few voted no, still uncomfortable with humanity's deception and rapid rise to power. But when the final tally was announced, the result was clear. 43 species voted yes. Only 4 voted no. The motion passes, Vextar announced. Earth is hereby granted a permanent seat on the Galactic Council with full authority and privileges. Applause filled the chamber, though it was subdued. This was a historic moment, but also an unsettling one for many species. Admiral Park bowed formally to the Council. Earth thanks the Council for this recognition. We pledge to uphold our responsibilities and to work toward peace and prosperity for all species. After the session ended, Vextar approached the human delegation privately. May I speak with you, Admiral? Park nodded, and they moved to a quiet corner of the chamber. I need to know, Vextar said quietly. The battle. You could have destroyed the entire Kaldrith fleet. You had them helpless. Why did you accept their surrender? Why show mercy? Park was quiet for a moment before answering. Because we're not monsters, Counselor. Yes, we can fight. Yes, we can kill when necessary, but we don't enjoy it. Every person we lost in that battle was someone's child, someone's friend, someone's family. The same is true for the Kaldrith we killed. He looked at the view of space outside the chamber. Earth has a violent history. We've fought countless wars among ourselves. We've committed terrible acts, but we've also learned from those mistakes. We've learned that peace is better than war, and that mercy is better than revenge. The Kaldrith would not have shown you mercy, Vextar said. I know, Park replied. That's why we're better than them. Vextar studied the human admiral for a long moment. I think I understand now why your species will be important to the galaxy. You have the strength to destroy, but the wisdom to choose not to. We try, Park said. We don't always succeed, but we try. 3 months later, the first joint Council Earth Defense Fleet was formed. Human ships patrolled alongside vessels from a dozen other species, protecting trade routes and defending smaller civilizations from aggression. Captain Minji Han commanded a mixed squadron that included human destroyers, Aquarian cruisers, and Felinar scouts. Her first mission was to respond to a distress call from a mining colony being raided by pirates. The pirates fled at the first sight of her squadron. Word had spread quickly across the galaxy. Don't mess with anyone protected by human ships. Squadron leader So Young Lee was promoted to wing commander and given the task of training pilots from other species in human combat tactics. Her students were eager to learn, and she was patient in teaching them. Hana Yun's cyber warfare division began working with Council security experts, sharing knowledge about defensive systems and helping to protect civilian computer networks from attacks. And Jiwan Choi, the brilliant scientist who had designed Earth's secret weapons, began collaborating with researchers from other species, working on peaceful technologies that would benefit everyone. 1 year after the battle, Admiral Park stood on the observation deck of humanity's first embassy station, looking out at the stars. Earth had changed so much in such a short time. They had gone from an unknown species to a major galactic power. Ambassador Yuna joined him, holding 2 cups of tea. "Thinking about the battle?" she asked. "Always," Park said, accepting the tea. "I think about the people we lost. I wonder if we could have found another way." "The Caldrith didn't give us another choice," Yuna reminded him gently. "I know. But I still wonder." He sipped his tea. "How are the diplomatic relations going?" "Better than expected. 15 new species have requested defensive pacts. Trade agreements are being signed every week. The Council actually listens to us now. Because they're afraid of us. Partly," Yuna admitted, "but also because they respect us. We proved we can defend ourselves and others." "That matters," Park nodded slowly. "What do you think the future holds?" Yuna smiled. "A future where humanity stands as equals among the stars. Where we protect those who need protection. Where we explore and learn and grow. Isn't that what we always wanted?" "Yes," Park said. "I suppose it is." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching ships from a dozen different species pass by the station. Human ships flew alongside alien vessels, working together, protecting the galaxy together. The age of humanity standing alone was over. The age of humanity, as a galactic power, had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. In a final message to Earth Defense Command, Admiral Park wrote, "We predicted they would underestimate us. And they did. We prepared for the day someone would threaten us, and that day came. We fought not because we wanted to, but because we had to. And when the battle ended in minutes instead of hours, the galaxy learned what it means to challenge humanity. We don't seek war. We don't desire conquest. But we will defend what is ours with everything we have. That is the promise Earth makes to its people and to the galaxy. We are here. We are strong. And we will never back down." The message became famous throughout human space. Children learned it in school. Soldiers recited it before battle. Diplomats quoted it in negotiations. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through words, but through action. The Galactic Council had predicted human defeat in hours. Humanity had ended the battle in minutes, and the galaxy would remember.